Welcome back to the Rise and Grind Workshop. If you're new here, my name is Ryan. And if you own a UV printer like our J's Printer Parts ZZ2C or any other UV printer that uses the XP600 print head, trust me, there's going to be a time and day that comes when you're going to need to do a print head replacement. Now, I know a lot of people are really intimidated to work on any type of machinery, let alone changing out a print head. Today, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the entire process of how to change out a print head on an XP600 UV printer. It's a really simple process. When you're new to UV printing and your printer starts acting up, one of the biggest challenges is diagnosing that machine and figuring out what exactly is going wrong and when do you really need to change out that print head. A print head is called a consumable, and these print heads do have a lifespan. If you take care of these XP600 print heads, they can typically last anywhere from 3 months up to a year. We have about 4.5, 5 months on this print head. I'm going to quickly show you what I do each morning before I start printing. Then I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of those test prints, and I'm going to let you know how I determine that we're at the point where I need to replace that print head, and it's not something like a damper going bad or I have an ink clog or something like that. So when I first come out to my shop and I'm getting ready to print for the day, this is the first thing I typically do on my machine. I feed my table in past that carriage, and then I lower the height down so I can access those print heads. Once I have that table lowered down, I jog my print head out over the middle section. And as you can see, we have some varnish and some UV ink over here in our capping stations. And obviously this is your felt wiper blade. Mine's filthy. I used to adjust these and change them out constantly, but I've personally found that I can leave mine like this and it doesn't affect my print head. Your machine might be a little different. So our ZZ2C from J's Printer Parts is a 2 print head unit. The first print head handles the CMYK color and the second print head handles our varnish. The varnish definitely likes to gum up. Your CMYK definitely doesn't gum up like the varnish. So we definitely get in there and do a little extra detailing to the varnish print head. At the end of the day, all I'm simply going to do is use a lint-free Kleenex like so. And I typically just use some isopropyl alcohol. And I just put a tiny bit of that isopropyl alcohol on this Kleenex. I'm going to go ahead and start with the back print head, and I'm going to just gently start from the back and give it one clean wiping motion forward. And we're just using very gentle pressure. Anytime you're touching these print heads, you want to be very careful. So I'm just going to come under here, get right under that CMYK, and give that a clean little wipe. And you can see that's already got a bunch of ink saturated into that Kleenex. Now I take this Kleenex and I toss it out of the way. Then I go ahead and throw a little bit more on another Kleenex. And then we address our varnish. So right there you can see, do you see how that varnish is kind of dried up? You can see these particles. You do not want that on the print head. So that's why we do this each morning. Fold that in half, make sure it's nice and clean and there's nothing that's going to scratch. And go and give that one more wipe down. If you have any dried varnish outside of the print head on the metal area, you can go ahead and just use your finger and scrape that off. You don't want any of that material dragging across your prints. Now that the print head is wiped down, I come in here to the CMYK station and I just use that same tissue and I just give this a good wipe down and I go across my wiper blade a couple times, just getting a lot of the excess out. You can see how black and dark that is. Then I'm going to come back over to the varnish station and I have a completely new one. I don't want to cross-contaminate any of the color ink over into the varnish right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and give the outside a nice wiping down. And then on the inside here, you can see some of these larger, those larger varnish pieces. I just go ahead and pick those out and then I clear that out the best I can. And even if I have to use a little bit of compressed air, I can do that. That makes quite a mess. But I'm just trying to get the big chunky pieces out so that this capping station can extract that waste ink. Once I've completed those steps, depending on the unit you should have a head cleaning button on the front control panel, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now is clean that print head. So let's just go ahead and let this print head go through the cleaning process, and then we're going to print a test flag. If you own a UV printer, you will be very familiar with printing these color or test flags. I just like to use this old piece of glass right here. It allows me to scrape off the old prints and continually use this. So I'm going to go ahead and just place this piece of glass on the table right here. We're going to get this in focus, and we're going to run our first color flag of the day, and then we're going to take a look at it, and that's going to determine what we do next. So it's very important when you're running your test flags, if you have a 2 print head machine, go ahead and make sure you have your spot channel applied to the CMYK, and you want to make sure you run the varnish. And you should be running this every single day. That way you're feeding the varnish through the print head, and you're feeding your CMYK colors through the print head as well. All right, let's go ahead and examine this color flag, and I'm going to explain a little bit to you about what's going on. You should get a nice, crisp, yellow, black, blue, and red color flag. Clearly, the blue is looking a little purple. Now, if your first color flag turns out like this, don't freak out. There's been many times that I've printed a color flag like this, and I've just done a simple head cleaning, and I've brought the blue back to life. Sometimes you could have a clogged damper. Sometimes you could have bad blue ink. Those are some of the challenges. Clearly, we are getting purple right here, and that is not what we want to see. This right here is really what we should be looking at. You want a nice, vibrant blue like this. Now let's go ahead and look at some of this poster board. Unfortunately for me, I've already done some testing off of camera, and you can see I've ran a bunch of different color flags, and I also ran this on poster board. One of the dead giveaways for me for 2 things happening here is that there must be some sort of damage inside of that XP600 diaphragm, and it's allowing the magenta to mix with that cyan, and that's why we're getting a purple. But the real big indicator for me is if you look up over here by this blue, the purple, and the black, you're going to see some of that blue ink overspray. And every single color flag I've ran, no matter how many head cleanings I've done, I am getting that overspray. So that right there is going to lead me to the conclusion that I do need to replace that print head. So now we're on the back side of this UV printer, and I want to explain to you the way this system works. It's very important for you to troubleshoot this. That way you're not replacing print heads when you don't need to. This right here is where our blue and our yellow and our red ink is on the back side of this ZZ2C. The moment this system pressurizes and it starts drawing ink into the system, the first area this ink needs to transport is going to be from this jug through these tubes, and then it's going to reach to those dampers on the front side of the machine. So the first order of operations is to make sure we're getting ink from the jug all the way up into the damper. We don't want to have any air in the line, and we don't want to have any clogs. Let me show you how we determine that. So now we have the print carriage moved out of the way, and we can get a good look at these capping stations. As you can see right now, there is nothing inside of these capping stations. And when I mentioned dampers, these are the dampers right here. So when that ink goes from the back of the machine and starts moving to the front of the machine, that's going to be the first area that ink enters. So you want to make sure you don't have a clogged damper. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick test so you can determine what exactly is going on. Inside of your Print EXP software, go ahead and move over to the Settings tab, and I'm going to go ahead and select 2 head, and head 1 is my CMYK. I'm just going to go ahead and click Load Ink for about 7 to 10 seconds. You can hear those vacuum pumps kick on and start struggling. Let's hit Stop. Now back over at the machine, let's jog that carriage out of the way. And now take a look at that capping station. If you see fluid and ink inside of that capping station, you already know that you've been able to get ink from the jug, through those dampers, through the print head, down into the capping station. So we know we're not having an ink delivery issue at this point in time. Now in order to eradicate that ink, go ahead and hit the clean cycle button again, and you will notice that inside of that ink well, you did see blue ink. If you didn't see any type of blue ink, that might be an indicator that you do have a clog somewhere. Now after loading ink and you jog that carriage over, if you just see a bunch of bubbles inside of that ink well, that's a good sign that you're not getting ink delivery, and that could be a couple other things. Your print head might not be aligned to that capping station, or maybe that capping station needs to be shimmed up. We clearly saw ink down inside of that capping station, so we know that we are getting good ink delivery. Another thing that you would check would be to pull that damper off and go ahead and reach into your accessory bag and get one of these syringes. So I'm going to pop this blue damper off really quick. I'm going to take my syringe, I'm just going to put that up inside of this damper, and I'm going to pull down on that. And you can see right away we're getting blue ink inside of that syringe, so we know there's no clog. There was no resistance, and the plunger didn't want to dive back inside of the syringe. So we know we're good. So that's how I use a process of elimination to determine what I need to fix or change on this printer. I'm under the impression right now, based on my testing, that I just need to go ahead and swap out that print head. And anytime you change out your print heads, it is highly recommended you change out these ribbon cables. If you get lucky, sometimes you might just have a bad ribbon cable and the print head is good. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure this print head is toast. So I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through how we get that changed out. I personally like to lower my table down so I could get underneath that carriage and see how the print head is seated inside of that carriage. And I also jog the table out just a little bit. Now let's go ahead and move this print carriage to the center of this table. Once you have that carriage moved over where you want to work on it, we're going to power off the machine. Anytime you start touching these ribbon cables, dampers, or anything like that, you have a chance of burning out either the print head or the motherboard. So let's just go ahead and make sure we turn that machine off when we work on this. The fastest way to ruin your print head is by allowing any type of ink to get on these ribbon cables, and those go down into the circuit board. I also like to be able to have good access to my print head when I'm working on them. So I just use some of these sandwich bags, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove these varnish dampers and put them in this clear bag, being very careful that I don't get varnish everywhere. So now I have all the varnish dampers in this clear bag, and I can just kind of swing this out of the way. Now I'm simply going to repeat that same process with the CMYK dampers. Take your time, be careful, and make sure that you do not get any excess ink anywhere around those ribbon cables. We can just hang those off to the side. Now, if this is your first time replacing a ribbon cable and print head, from the factory, these ribbon cables are folded really nice. I'm not personally into that kind of origami, and I just slam these ribbon cables in here. The way this print head is held into the carriage, there are 4 Phillips head screws, so I'm going to go ahead and take the supplied Phillips screwdriver and simply remove those 4 screws. With all 4 screws removed, that's going to allow me to reach inside of here and lift out this print head. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the ribbon cable on the left and right hand side. And again, we want to keep these ribbon cables away from any ink. Go ahead and now set your print head on this rag. Once I've pulled my ribbon cable out of the print head, I give it a quick visual inspection. Make sure there's no burn marks, corrode marks, or any ink stains on this ribbon cable. And just make sure the silver coating is perfect. This is a really good ribbon cable. I don't think I have a ribbon cable issue. I am not going to be replacing that ribbon cable. Let's verify the other side looks the same. Same with the other side as well. The XP600 print head is what you call a 6-channel print head, and this is the manifold right here where the ink enters into the system, and you've got 2 white channels, and then you have your CMYK over here. Let's go ahead and flip this print head over, and there's going to be 4 additional small Phillips screws in this rubber gasket right here. Let's go ahead and remove those screws. With those 4 screws removed, you're now going to get access to remove the rubber gasket. We just need the rubber gasket for the new print head. So this right here is going to be a replacement print head for the ZZ2C, and this is a rebuilt XP600 print head. We get these from Jay's Printer Parts, and I will have a discount code down below in the description, and I'll pop it on the screen here really quick. That'll save you some additional money when purchasing your printers or printer parts from Jay's Printers. Let's go ahead and open this box up and get the new print head out. So this right here is what your brand new print head's going to look like when you pull it out of the box. And if you see any type of liquid that's like a purple color or even a clear color, Jay's Printer Parts often puts a cleaning solution or a moisturizing solution inside of these print heads when they ship them. That way it protects and preserves the life of that print head. Let's go ahead and open this up, taking great care not to hit that print head on anything. So as you can see, this new print head has those same 4 screws holding that little shroud in, but it does not have that rubber gasket. So we want to make sure we get that rubber gasket placed on here. Now that we have this rubber gasket laying around the outside of that print head, we're going to go ahead and take it back over to that carriage area, and we're going to reverse that process. Grab your ribbon cable and get that inserted in. We've got a nice good connection right there. Let's go and get the second ribbon cable inserted. And again, with this Mickey Mouse mess of ribbon cables, just make sure you have it set up so once that ribbon cable's in, you can still get it pressed down inside of that carriage. So now you can see we have both ribbon cables plugged into that print head, and then now we're going to feed this back down into the carriage. So now that I've brought the camera in closer, you can see that we have that XP600 print head sitting in there nice and flush, and that's the reason I dropped this table down low. That way I can get underneath of here and look at that and make sure that that print head is sitting flush. I know this is probably hard to see on camera with my hands and everything in the way. Just make sure you save those 4 screws because you will reuse those. I personally just get the screws started in all 4 positions before I start putting any tension on the corners. Once I have all 4 screws in each corner, I give those a nice snug. I don't over tighten so that I don't strip out the carriage. So now that we have the print head back in place, let's go ahead and move these varnish dampers out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and put the dampers back on the new print head, and I'm going to go ahead and start with our CMYK. And again, this part of the process is very crucial. You do not want to drip any ink on top of these ribbon cables while you're reinstalling these dampers. So I'm going to start with the 2 white dampers, and those go to the far left. Next to the 2 white will be the black damper. Next to the black damper will be our red. Then that will be our blue or cyan next to the red or magenta. And then we will also put in our yellow. Now that we have all of our CMYK dampers, let's just go ahead and keep that process going and get our varnish dampers installed. Once you have all your dampers back on the print head manifold, just go ahead and give it a quick double check. Make sure they're seated properly and nice and flat. Everything here looks good. Well, drop a comment down below. Let me know, what do you guys think? Was that a very simple process for replacing that print head? Now let's go ahead and turn the machine back on. It's going to do an initialization process, and anytime I remove the dampers from a print head, I'm going to go ahead and load some ink. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go back over to Print EXP, and we're going to load ink and double check that those capping stations are filling up with ink like we saw previously. And then we're going to run a color flag, and if everything went according to plan, we'll be back in business. All right, let's fire this thing back up. The carriage is going to return home, and it's going to go through an initializing process. So let's again take a quick look at our first color flag. We're going to utilize the same piece of glass, put it back in the same spot, and we're going to print our new flag above that, and we're going to compare the two. Now back inside of Print EXP, let's go ahead and go over to the Load Ink tab, and you're going to notice this time it says 2 head all. So let's go ahead and hit Load Ink. We're probably going to let this run for about 15 seconds to get that ink up in that new print head. All right, now I can hear the pump struggling a little bit. Let's hit stop. You don't want to hit print head clean yet. We want to be able to come over here and look inside the capping station. And that right there is exactly what you're looking for. We have ink in the varnish and we have ink in the CMYK. Now that we've confirmed we have ink loaded, let's go ahead and hit the clean. We'll let this finish the cleaning cycle and we'll run a test flag. All right, let's give this a go. Fingers crossed this works out. And anytime you put a new print head into the printer, your first color flag is usually not going to print good. It might take 1 or 2 and a couple ink loads to get that thing primed. I can tell right now this is going to need another flag printed. So right there is what we just printed. Now one good sign is we do have blue versus purple, but clearly we're not getting good ink delivery. I'm going to go load ink one more time, run another head clean, and then we're going to run another flag and see if that fixes it. So we went ahead and ran another print head clean, and now you can see that's laying a nice solid white foundation, and it looks like our colors are on point. Now let's go ahead and compare that color flag versus that first color flag. We've now got the proper blue back, it laid a nice white base down, and then the CMYK on top of that. Let's go ahead and use our razor blade. Let's go ahead and use our razor blade and scrape this off. Now let's just go ahead and run one more flag. So right there's another good shot where you can see it laying the nice solid white and then the color. There you have it. And one of the reasons we really like printing on this glass, you can flip that glass over and you can really get a great look at how well the white channels are printing. So again, if you own a UV printer or you're looking at getting into a UV printer, those print heads are considered a consumable and you will have to change those print heads out. There's no need to be afraid of it. As you can see, that was a very straightforward process, really just removing 4 screws, inspecting those ribbon cables, and it took us 3 test or color flags to bring this print head back to life. We are now ready to start processing orders. If you guys enjoy this type of content and you want more tips and tricks on how to maintain or do repairs on your UV printer, you might want to make sure you're subscribed to our channel, and go ahead and drop a comment down below and let me know what other type of content you would like to see. We love the ZZ2C from Jay's Printer Parts. We've had it for almost a year and it has been running flawlessly. Like I said, that's a consumable. That is something that is expected to be replaced on a UV printer. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next video.